Yep. Now we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast, the Ramblers of the Round Table. And just wanted to say hi to all of our subscribers. And Jackie's going to do a quick disclaimer for everybody.
Yeah, before we begin today's ramble, I'm going to give a disclaimer. So by listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that the host, guests, and contributors are not responsible for any decisions or actions you take based on the information presented. And I'm going to pass it on to you, Brett.
Thank you, Jackie. Hi, Scott. Hey, Arash. Well, welcome, Ramblers. As you can see from my beautiful suntan, we've had some sun in Scotland, so it's that time of year. So yeah, we've got Arash Taheri. Is that correct? Have I got your surname correct there, Arash?
Taheri, yeah.
Taheri, almost. So he's going to join us. He's an Urmah Starseed. Maybe Arash, a good place to start, just for anyone that doesn't know, who didn't see the first time you joined us on the podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, and where did this all begin? What kind of age did this begin? So I'm going to pass it straight to you, brother. And yeah, carry on.
Well, good morning, everyone. So look, I'm a 47-year-old orthopaedic surgeon. I do robotic joint replacement. I'm one of the pioneers of robotic joint replacement in the Southern Hemisphere. I've done just about the most cases. Been doing it for about 10 or so years now. And I was the first fellowship trained robotic surgeon in Australia as well. So I learned all my techniques from USC in Southern California and LA. So I was a devout atheist, really, most of my career, as you would be as a doctor. You're basically indoctrinated literally throughout your training to think a certain way, to believe a certain thing, to be a lot more about reductionist material science than actually anything ethereal. So I really, whilst I was always interested in UFOs and science fiction, I always saw it as something separate to reality. So it wasn't anything that could have been real, really. Although I was, obsessed with Star Wars, like we all probably were, and Star Trek, and all the different, alien movies and Predator movies. And so I was right into all that sort of stuff when I was growing up. But when my dog died in 2020, that kind of woke me up to the other side of reality a little bit. And basically, long story short, I was hearing him in my room between 2 and 4 in the morning every morning for like 4 weeks after he died, and basically got to a point where I thought I was going crazy. So I thought, I'll call my father. It's 2 in the morning. He's a lifeline counsellor, 20-year lifeline counsellor, and just to get some idea where is this coming from. And basically, he says, oh, look, maybe your mind's playing tricks on you. I said, well, it would be if it wasn't happening every day for 4 weeks. And so basically he said, oh, wow. And he was quite spiritual, and he's quite spiritual. And he said, look, well, maybe he doesn't know he's passed over because it was a traumatic death. And maybe he's worried about you, because we all are, because I wasn't doing very well at the time. I know I was pretty in a lot of grief. And he basically says, why don't you just tell him that you've passed over, that you died out the front of the house, but you're okay, even though you're grieving, and blah, blah, blah. So I did all that like a crazy person, talking to nothing in the middle of the night, here, because I'd heard my dog again in my sort of sleep. And after that, I never heard from him again. And so it was basically not until I found some breath work, some meditation, some sound healing, I started reconnecting to my dog in the astral, and I started seeing and feeling things that I've never felt before. And so I started realizing that there is way more to physical reality than what we've been taught. And it set the wheels in motion to be really interested in a lot of esoteric things. And one of those things was to go to the Conscious Life Expo in LA, which I think was the following year. I can't remember, 21 or so, I think. 21, 22. No, I think it was 2022. And I went along there, and I was just really involved with everything. I was really interested in Dolores Cannon's work at the time, and past life regressions and that sort of thing. And I was with a friend who was very keen to get a past life regression after the conference. So we went to Sacramento, Southern California, with a lady who's really well known. Her name's Laurie McDonald. She's a ET contactee and a sort of quite an intuitive, and she's a registered regression hypnosis therapist. She's on all over Gaia. You'd see her. She's long blonde hair, a middle-aged lady, really nice. Anyway, so she does my regression. I actually went more as a support for my friend rather than more. Not that I was that interested in it really at the time, and so I did it. But it turns out, like, I was shown this whole life where I was this giant, upright standing, 8 foot tall tiger, like a space tiger, and I was having a memory of being in an underwater facility. Like, I can really remember it. I was standing at the back of the battalion of all these other huge lions. They're all in very flamboyant armor. The underwater facility, we were there taking refuge. It was one of the water worlds in Sirius constellation system. And I could see basically that we were underwater. There was a lot of greenery everywhere. Everything was very metallic looking, shiny. We were on the side of an underwater mountain, and then it was basically all perspex on the other side, so you could see out into the ocean and underwater, and you could see that, and it was beautiful. Anything you could think of in a science fiction movie of an underwater facility, multiply that by 1 million, and you'd probably be close to what I was experiencing. It was a beautiful sort of vibrant, high vibrational space. There were these dolphin humanoids as well, so they were kind of like they were upright standing. They had dolphin skin. They had a sort of a fin on their head and a shorter snout, but you could clearly tell that they were a higher evolved version of a dolphin, you know. And they were very empathic, and they were clearly allies with the Urmah, and they were taking us in after we'd sort of evacuated Avion, which was the Urmah home planet. And a lot of this just came through all sort of like in a big dump during this session. And another interesting thing happened during the session. Was probably not relevant, but a great grey was involved as well, but that's a different story. But basically, during that session, I was shown this life where I was this high-powered sort of general in an army. I saw myself in, like, when you're in a past life regression, as I'm sure, Brett, you've done one now, you see everything from first-person perspective. It's like you're piggybacking onto the consciousness of that individual version of you. And you're not really, you've got some control, but you're sort of piggybacking whatever's happening in that reality, and you're seeing it as an observer through your mind's eye, because your eyes are closed. I mean, it's all visualization. The visualization techniques that they use in the hypnosis therapy, they activate your third eye effectively. So when you start seeing all this stuff, and this was before, right? So this was well before anyone really was posting about this. Like a lot of the information that I resonate really deeply with is Swaru official, and she's a Taigetan Pleiadian, and she has actually connections directly to the Urmah. She was an Urmah in a past life, has recently come to pass, if that's okay. So a lot of things, and she interestingly, after that first regression where I was shown I was at this up, because I didn't know what an Urmah was at the time. All I knew was that I was this tiger species that looked really tough, like it looked like a Thanos version of this upright standing tiger. Like I was a super beefcake, and had a huge big sword on my back, and like all this flamboyant sort of gold, silver, nanotechnology style of armor over my fur, and I had an opposable thumb. I had a long tail. I saw myself in one of the pylons that was reflective, and I was just looking at myself, and I sort of looked at myself in the mirror and showed my teeth. I kind of scared myself. I was like, wow, like it's quite a ferocious sort of being. So you sort of get shown all this, and then I think it was the following week, Swaru posts on her an interview with the Urmah, and it was actually on my birthday, the 23rd of February, that she does the Urmah interview. It was on my birthday, and so you get these little strange synchronicities that you think, what are the chances of someone who doesn't post anything about space tigers suddenly posts about an interview about a space tiger the week after you get shown in your regression that you're a space tiger, and that this is what they're called, and this is what they're, and starts educating. And of course I resonated deeply with this straight away, and the more I watched of it, the more it seemed to unlock some feelings that I had, and visions and memories actually that I had in my life as an Urmah. So so that's sort of the sort of the size of it. Now, I along this journey, I've obviously done a live regression in Germany recently last year with Sarah Bressman-Cosme. That went really well. That's how we met, Brett. So there's been so many things that have just come to pass that have culminated in me being on a podcast, sitting here with you guys, talking about this and giving the story on a fairly public sort of platform. So obviously there's a reason for this, and what I've found is, as I've lent into, because I've always loved crystals, I've always loved tigers. That, like, my whole family has always loved tigers. That's the other weird thing. So, like, we've got, still to this day, my dad has got these huge, about the size of the window behind me, portraits, like big photos of like Bengal tigers and a tiger in the wild, and like 3 or 4 of them that we all grew up with. And Dad brought them back from Hobart, which is the other side of the country, actually had them shipped over, like, when he moved over here. Like, he should have just got rid of them. Like, it was a big headache to bring these huge things here, and they're all over the garage. So basically every time you go into the garage, you see these huge tiger photos everywhere. And I'm like, Dad, have you realized, like, that you've brought these ginormous photos of tigers? Like, why have you done that? They're like 30 years old. And he's like, I don't know, I just couldn't let go of them somehow. I just felt like they were part of us and they needed to be here. And so and my other brother, my youngest brother, Farid, he was obsessed with them. A lot of those photos were his, so he was obsessed with them. And so, and other things came through in my regression with Sarah. That, like, for example, I've had ACL reconstruction 4 times in my right knee. My younger brother, Som, who's 5 years younger, he ruptured his ACL about the same age that I ruptured my ACL. And my father also ruptured his ACL the same age as we both ruptured our ACL. So that's 3 people. And then our cousin, so my father's brother, his son, he ruptured his PCL at a very similar age. So there's this issue with knees in our family, right? And so I asked the question, as you do in a regression, what is the reason for this? And the answer that came out was very interesting, because I was in this Urmah sort of state of consciousness when I was talking to Sarah, because that's what she wanted to talk to me about. And one of the things that came through was, if you look at a cat when it stands on its hind 2 legs, which is what basically an Urmah is doing, the knees sort of go backwards and then forwards, rather than forwards and then backwards. So basically, your knees are reversed effectively when you stand up upright as a bipedal hominid versus as a tiger standing on its hind legs. And so what I was told was that because we are Urmah, our essence and our soul essence is more Urmah, we are not used to, we're used to running really fast. We were all super fast runners. Like, I was a state league soccer player. I was like the highest goal scorer, as a striker 3 years in a row, in one of the years of soccer at the highest level. So we all could run a lot fast, but we all ruptured our cruciates, and it's because we're not used to that sensation of the knee bending forwards rather than backwards at a soul level. And that's what came through in my regression. So it's like stuff like that There's no way in the world, trust me, like I couldn't have thought of that myself in a million years, even as an orthopedic surgeon, that is the reason why you and all of your family do it at exactly the same time of your life too, because that's when your consciousness becomes aware of certain aspects of your multi-dimensional self, and that's when you can, and you carry things over from previous, or it's not previous life, it's parallel life, right? Because everything's happening right now, and so you're getting aspects of yourself that you become aware of that you were in other, but because ultimately we're all one. You, me, everyone, we're all just each other, experience a fractal holographic fleck of source itself, all reflecting each other back to each other and having an independent experience, because you can't have a sense of egoic self without there being a sense of separation. So we have to do this. But the more expanded your consciousness becomes, the more of these past life regressions that you do, the more you realize that you've actually been a nun in the 1940s, or a farm boy in the Middle Ages, or whatever. Like that, people come out with this stuff. Like, all you have to do is watch Dolores Cannon's read some of her books, and you'll see that it's just unbelievable what people are aware of. So in my mind, based on my experience, and also I practice transcendental meditation, I understand what the Vedic culture is all about. They believe 100% in reincarnations and that sort of stuff. We definitely are able to, when we leave our bodies, we're able to choose where we want to go next, what we want to do next.
Yeah, Holly had a question for you. Since we're about that, just noticed in the chat there that Holly had a question, and Jackie was going to read it over to you.
Go for it.
Well, actually, I asked her a question because she's a QHHT practitioner, and she's in the chat now. And I asked her if the Urmah are showing up frequently with her clients. And she says that she's had a few clients that recall the Urmah, and that they're often mentioned as galactic space, or mentioned during recall of galactic space station descriptions. And she says they're quite active in the galaxy, beautiful beings in the warrior class. Does any of that resonate with you?
Yeah, 100%. All of that's right. So basically, the Urmah are here. So this is where the sort of the rabbit hole gets very deep. But basically, everyone on this planet is a starseed. Effect. Anyone who's connected to source is more or less a extraterrestrial being or soul, a multi-dimensional soul. We're all multi-dimensional. So we're here on third density Earth to have a more gritty experience of duality, to create a state of consciousness together, collectively, unconsciously. We're all here doing this together, and every single star race has a presence here in either low or high Earth orbit, and they're all in a higher frequency. So a lot of them, we can't see their vessels. They've got cloaking devices, but they're here. What we're seeing, though, right now, a lot of, is the spherical drones that are going around. Those spherical drones, Swaru has a two-part series on them, talking about these spherical drones, how basically every interstellar species has these spherical drones, and what they do is they've got AI in them that scans the consciousness of everyone on the planet, and they keep an eye on their own starseeds. And so the Urmah are no different. So they are here on a mothership called the Avian One, according to Swaru, and they basically are here. King Rua himself is here, so the white lion, who is the king of the Urmah, is here, and they are part of the Galactic Federation, but they are a nuisance to them, because basically they do not have any interest in following regulations for the sake of following regulations. They do things exactly like a cat does, which is their way or the highway. Basically, that if something doesn't make sense to them, they won't do it. So they are apex predators, and literally the Galactic Federation's total military might is only equivalent to or just below the Urmah's entire military might, because they've got a colony on Sirius. They're widely dispersed apparently throughout. They've got a colony in the Pleiades. They're everywhere, and there's been a lot of suppression in mainstream history about the Urmah, because the Galactic Federation doesn't really want the public to know that there is a highly advanced feline race in Earth's orbit, because it will give everyone hope. And that's what I'm here for, I think, is to show people that they are, I think, very real. I think extraterrestrials are very much on this planet. They are in our Earth's orbit. All you have to watch is Third Phase of the Moon, which is a YouTube channel that basically just goes over each week, sometimes twice or three times a week, goes through every UFO sighting that you can see, and they're everywhere. They're everywhere. So it's crazy to think that nothing is happening. We're basically living in what I like to term the biggest Truman Show in the world. It's like a complete planetary Truman Show. Everything is not what it seems, effectively. There are extraterrestrials here. There are people that are walking amongst us, apparently, that are extraterrestrial, actual step downs off starships. And and a lot of them are in higher places of authority, things like politicians, a lot of people in the medical industry, apparently. There's a bit of a spiritual war going on. There's the older factions of ETs that are obviously here to kind of exploit things a little bit, because initially I think the reptilian because basically the Urmah and the Draco, which are the Alpha Draco, are the space dragons. Basically, the two apex predators of the galaxy are these space dragons, literal fire-breathing or napalm-breathing dragons, and these giant Urmah, which are basically ferocious felines, upright standing felines. So they are military-based species, but they're highly benevolent. They initially were very oppressive and aggressive, but they've since calmed down, as have the Alpha Dracos. So the dragons are also, whilst they initially were quite aggressive and regressive, now they keep each other in check, effectively, after many moons of warring. And so the wars that occurred that created some of the situations in this solar system, and you can put that photo up if you like, of the asteroid belt. Basically, the Orion wars that occurred, I'm not sure how many thousands of years ago, the Orion wars that occurred basically found their way to Earth, and this was at a time when there was an extra planet in the solar system, and this planet was called Tiamat. Okay, and basically it was a Neptune-sized planet, water world, almost exclusively water. It was very large, and there's documented evidence in a lot of the things, either Hopi or the Dogon. There's one of the tribes, ancient tribes, talk about a time before the moon and when there was two suns. And so the two suns concept is actually the basically Tiamat, as that huge water world, was such a reflection from the water that effectively the sun's rays were being reflected back as almost like a second sun in the sky. So what happened was the wars came to this sector. They actually exploded that planet during the wars, effectively. So there was a lot of, and that planet has become the main asteroid belt, because if you take distances, astronomical distances between Mercury, Mars, Earth, and then Jupiter, there's a big gap between Mars and Jupiter that shouldn't be there, and instead of what's there is the asteroid belt. And mainstream mainstream astronomy just says, oh, it's just an asteroid belt. No. You don't just get an asteroid belt. It happens because there's been a big planetary debris, and that it gets caught in its orbit. That's what happens. That's what happens and so what's happened then is the water from Tiamat floats across and actually comes to Earth. And that's around the time that we all have in ancient history: the Great Deluge, the floods, the youngest, driest period, the end of the Ice Age, etc., etc., etc. In all of our mainstream history, is that. But and even mainstream human science speaks of how the water on planet Earth is older than the Earth itself, and apparently that's a fact. So they've done the research on that, and they've found that the water is actually older. And there's a lot of interesting stuff about water that we can talk about as well. But basically, and people in the mainstream will go, well, how that can't really work, because water can't just travel in a vacuum as a big glob and then rain down on another planet. Well, apparently it can. And the way that it can is that so mainstream, again, this is going against mainstream, is that space is not a vacuum. Space is an ether. It is a fluid medium through which consciousness flows. You have to have a medium through which something flows, and consciousness is all that there is, and so therefore something has to be flowing in. That's how quantum entanglement occurs, is through that communication through the ether. Otherwise, it can't occur. And so what the Taygete and Pleiadians have explained and is basically that space is not a vacuum, it's an ether. And what that ether is water vibrating at a higher frequency. So at the plasma level, basically. So it's effectively a sort of a hydrostatic, electrostatic ether that allows movement of electrical, because there's a sort of a fringe but almost becoming mainstream concept of the electromagnetic universe, that everything is electromagnetics actually, and I think that's probably the case. And what we know from the double slit lamp experiment is that when you focus your attention on something, it collapses the wave function, because everything is potential energy fundamentally. Until we place our attention on it, then it collapses to a particle and acts like a particle, and that becomes physical matter. So that's the fundamentals of the double slit lamp experiment, as how it sort of pertains to reality in its own right. So consciousness creates physical matter, and so at an expanded level, at a space level, your point of attention, the flow of consciousness, the flow of attention is actually transmitted through the ether of high frequency water to a focalized point of attention. Now, that then creates matter. So what has in the solar system, our solar system, what has the greatest point of attention and thus the greatest amount of gravity? It's our sun, right? So our sun has been the center of many ancient civilizations, for a long time, as the focal point. And so the sun is a super consciousness. It is a portal. It is a super consciousness. And what it does is it attracts attention from everything. So everything revolves around the sun. So mainstream sort of science, I'm going against all of it. I'm saying you've got it backwards, i.e. consciousness flows through the ether to create physical matter, and that flow of consciousness is what we call gravity. So gravity is the flow of consciousness to a point of attention to create matter, and that is why the bigger the mass, the more the gravity. So mainstream science says the bigger the mass, the more the gravity. So mass creates gravity. What I'm saying is no, gravity is creating the mass through conscious attention and awareness to a point of tension, which leads to a collapse of the wave function to a standing scalar wave of potential energy that we manifest as a physical object, either the sun in the sky, the table that you sit on, the person in front of you, or even your physical form. You've decided, your oversoul has decided at this point in the eternal now, you want to be Arash and you want to be Brett, and so that's how physical manifestation, apparently, according to these extraterrestrial sources, works. And I think once you start, and you talk about things like Bashar's 5 rules of how to get things done in life, and one of them is just following your passion. Like, I've just been doing that now for a while, and realizing that it is literally a complete toolbox. As soon as you follow your authentic self, so authenticity being your highest and most strong physical trait that will create the highest vibration, is just embracing your authenticity. If your authenticity is wearing a crazy outfit like this and talking about all this sort of stuff and not giving two about any of it,
yeah, people wanted you to share about that too. People wanted to hear about your tiger jacket that you had it on. I've seen people were wanting to know about that.
So this is for, as I was saying to you guys before, this is I'm going to a festival. It's like a mini Burning Man. It's called Blazing Swan. And basically, it's got all the same principles, that 11 principles of Burning Man, which is ultimate freedom of expression, acceptance, and consent, and all those other things. It's like a modern day Woodstock, it sounds like. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going with a crew called the Human Excellence Project, and basically, great group of people. They all wear, because it's quite cold in the desert at night, they all wear these big, kind of over-exaggerated kind of festival jackets that they get made by a few people locally, and so I commissioned one of the guys a good friend of mine who actually does create these jackets as well. I said, let's put together this amazing jacket that's going to reflect my Urmah kind of heritage, because the festival's called Cosmic Coincidence as well, ironically. So I basically sourced this is organic linen from Turkey, and then this is false fur, the softest false fur, the nicest false fur I could find online. And so he's created sort of like this hooded.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, where online did you find that?
No. Awesome. This is completely made by.
Oh wow! I was gonna say, so can anybody get one?
Can you see that?
Wow,
yeah.
That is awesome! Yeah, I can totally see it.
Yeah. So it's a pretty cool.
Holy crap! That's even wow! I'm glad you stood up and showed.
It's got Velcro on here that you can connect LED lights that go around. It goes around the top of it. So it'll be so that's why and I thought what better time to wear it than on this podcast. And you know what outside of how outlandishly crazy it looks, it feels amazing to wear. And you know why it feels amazing to wear? Because number one, you're being authentic. Number two, I'm wearing the highest vibration, really high vibration cloth linen is. It's a beautiful fabric, and it insulates you, and it's a double layer. So it's basically it's a really nice vibration. And also through my human design chart, apparently my sacral chakra is my dominant chakra, and this is orange. And so there's a few interesting coincidences there that my sacral chakra is orange. I've been an orange tiger. My genetics, this is another interesting thing. It will bring up that this ancient cuneiform, but basically genetically, my youngest brother did a 23andMe, and I think 95% of the genetics of the three of us, we're all almost the same, is ancient Sumerian. So 95% ancient Sumerian and 5% Neanderthal. believe it or not. So that's our genetic makeup. So pretty pure ancient Sumerian. And so what we've got up there is the Sumerian cuneiform tablet, our alphabet that they were. So you hear a lot about the Sumerian tablets. Basically, this is back from ancient Sumer time in ancient, Middle East, Iraq, and I'm Persian by blood. So the mainstream archaeologists state that this language, basically, these were etched into soft clay tablets. So pressure was applied with a tool, according to mainstream archaeology, which is an end of a nail. So like a metal nail. They say that they used a metal nail. A human held a metal nail and did each one of those individually with a metal nail. Like, this is the most inefficient way you could possibly think to communicate anything, let alone a highly advanced.
No way. There's no way possible, bro. No way.
You can do it, but it will take you forever. And it's like,
well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, and then
like, why would you
messing up all the time?
Logical. So, and you're probably going to understand where I'm going with this, but basically, ancient Sumerians were in direct communication and contact, I think, with the Urmah, and the Urmah, their language is this cuneiform alphabet. So what they do is they dip their claws. If they're going to write, they dip their claws in ink, literally, and tap using the ends of their claws. Their claws are finely tuned instruments that they can use. And so if you look, it looks a lot like the claws of a tiger pressed into clay. You see, it's got this. It's even, if you look, it's even got the undersurface of the claw is a curve a little bit, so you can see there's a little bit of a curve at the top of each of the symbols and stuff. So it's basically them pushing the tips of their claws into clay at certain angles with a lot of finesse, and so yeah, and a lot of modern day science has come from ancient Sumer. A lot when you look back. So obviously genetically I am from that time period as well. So yeah, so a series of synchronicities.
One of the questions was, do you think that they have an ancient language, and how ancient is their Urmah world? Those are a couple of questions that people were asking about too.
Look, I'd be speculating, but they're an ancient, a really ancient culture. I think they predate probably Lyrian humans. I don't know, maybe they're around or around the same time. I don't know, but that you don't get to apex predator at that level at a galactic level without being around for a long time. And I'm pretty sure that they live. Each Urmah lives in terms of longitudinal linear time anywhere up to 1,200 years. So some very extended period of time. So when you live for that long, you can really enrich your soul, I think, a lot in that time period. If you think about a human life, we're just getting started, and then some of us are in an early grave. Like, we're just getting to a point where we're comfortable with who we are. We've reached enough wisdom to make the right choices in life, and then you're starting to wind down and like get ready to exit. So it'd be nice if you had another couple of 100 years to consolidate on on your first 60 or 80 years of learning on this fairly. Well, this is the thing. Like, it's a soul school, basically. Earth is a soul school. So the waters come from Tiamat. The moon was brought here then, right? So basically, this is the sequence of events. The Tiamat exploded. Water gets ejected onto Earth and a bit of Mars, I think. Mars gets scorched as well. That's why there's that huge ravine, and that's an energy weapon blast into Mars. But they mainstream again says it's a natural sort of ravine, which it doesn't look like it's natural at all. It looks like a high energy and that's why the planet is dead effectively. So yeah, they trapped a lot of the reptilians apparently back then on Earth, and they brought the moon in as an Andromedan biosphere. So the Galactic Federation was founded by the Andromedans and the Arcturians. They were the two biggest, and the Lyrians, the human Lyrians. So basically, those three factions all kind of came together to fight against the Alpha Dracos at the time, and the reptilians, which are the lesser species and the more humanoid species of the dragon reptiles, effectively. And so the moon, basically, around the time when all that water was that huge flood and the deluge, there was a lot of chaos on planet Earth, and there was heaps and heaps and heaps of water everywhere. I mean, that's where all of the latest reset of societies, ancient cultural sort of stories come from. That's why Noah's Arks come from that as well. You know, that's so all of these sort of stories apparently are all from that period of time. It was very unstable. The poles of Earth had started to wobble, and so there was a wobble on the Earth, and so they had to bring the moon in as a terraforming, basically. So it terraformed the planet effectively, and in also doing so, it blasts a suppressive frequency that keeps the Earth in a third density, which is where reptiles and lower vibrational entities like to live. So it also then became a bit of a soul school for people to come and incarnate from different star species that can't have such a nitty-gritty emotional roller coaster of love and hate and duality, and because in higher existential realms everything seems to be a lot more smooth and everyone is aware of everyone else. So the Urmah language, to answer the question, is I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but basically it's verbal and telepathic. So they say several words or a sentence, and then they imbue a huge telepathic story associated with their statement. So they may say something like, I went to Disneyland on the weekend, but then attached to that statement is their whole sort of experience at Disneyland is transferred telepathically all in one hit, because you transfer a lot more information via the quantum field than you can via words or symbols. So that's that's their language. That's what they still to this day use these alphabet keystrokes.
Yeah, Simon had asked soiree. Can you spell that for him so he can look it up?
Swaru. So SWARUU, official, OFICIAL. So it's spelt the European way, but it's so Swaru official. A YouTube channel. She's a Taigetan Pleiadian. You really probably should watch it from the beginning to get a full context of it, but she's effectively a 16 or 17-year-old Taigetan Pleiadian female on board a sort of high-end 1.2 kilometer large ship in high Earth orbit. She is directly got her own YouTube channel because everything on this planet is controlled by the Galactic Federation, and as long as you are not breaching the prime directive, which is to directly show your face, directly hear your voice, you can write information down and it's up to the viewer to take it or leave it. So she's trying to disseminate information from an extraterrestrial's point of view using the system and the rules and regulations of that system to still convey the messages. And so she has a disclaimer at the beginning, very cleverly states that, it's for whoever has eyes to see, and you can take it as science fiction, but she takes it very seriously, all to get around the very stringent YouTube community standards and effectively censorship of what's going on. And who is censoring? The Galactic Federation is censoring. Everything is run on this planet by the Galactic Federation. They are running it like a private soul school to have an experience, and we're all at a higher existential realm, level of thinking, like the Arcturians and the Andromedans, they feel that all the negative stuff that's happening on planet Earth right now is part of the plan. They're overarchingly saying that we're creating this for ourselves with our own minds, collectively, to some degree. And we, as the Urmah, and also the Targetan Pleiadians, and like the whole of the Alcyone Council, which involves all of the Pleiadian star system and all of the civilizations in those star systems, don't agree with that overarching concept, because what they are saying is that there's a regressive group of extraterrestrials on planet Earth that are manipulating. So the inmates of the prison are now running the prison, and no one in the prison knows what's real and what's not real. So what's coming from, from these regressives that are using our politicians as puppets, versus, so we don't know really what's real and what's not real. People are now questioning even whether the Earth is flat. So we've come full circle back, and in the Art of War, the Shenzhen book, Art of War, one of the things is everyone's familiar with the know thy enemy, right? Statement. You got to know your enemy, but you actually got to know yourself first in order to be able to know your enemy. And so what the cabal has very effectively done on this planet through brainwashing, mainstream media, social sort of standards, Hollywood, any form of media, any of the music industry, all of it, it's all subliminally mind controlling the masses to keep them in the state of either fear, anxiety, lower vibration. All you have to do is watch mainstream, news. I've stopped since 9/11. I stopped watching the mainstream news. It was clear to me it's all just it's a program. Everyone says the same thing over and over again, and it's all scripted. That's not news. News happens by the moment, in the moment, and there's no filtration of what's happening. It's you just present as it happens. That's not what news is. It's all a very highly organized manipulation of your thought processes, which lead you to believe certain things, which then you manifest for the collective, for them, effectively. This is how The Simpsons, right? So you know the concept of The Simpsons predicting everything? No, they don't predict anything. What they do is they neuro-linguistically program your consciousness into recognizing that is going to potentially, that's a potentiality. It puts your mind and your belief and everything in there. You visualize it on the screen using that, and the colors on that show are all by design. So yellow is your willpower chakra, right? So yellow is willpower chakra. They use yellow skinned beings to exert the will of whatever it is that they are showing in those animations. And so the collective unconscious, not even necessarily the collective conscious, but the collective unconscious that Carl Jung talks about, manifests what has been subliminally placed into the population. Because remember, The Simpsons is the single longest running television show and most watched television show on planet Earth. It is literally a global mind control for the masses. And it's peddled by Matt Groening, who Matt Groening, I believe, is a Freemason. And so don't get me started on the Freemasonry connection to the cabal. Like so there's a lot going on in the background. And I think those of us that are awake to it are really awake to it, and we question everything. We observe, we don't absorb. And I think that's a higher state of being will lead you to look at everything as an observer, see if it resonates, see if it marries up with your belief sets. If it does, good. If it doesn't, why is it challenging them? Appraise it, look at it seriously, look at the intention behind often where the information's coming from. And I think overarchingly, you can navigate the system in the matrix that we've got at the moment if you do it with, as Bashar says, with greatest sort of, intentions of your highest good and whatever makes you happy, to go and do it. That's your soul, oversoul, telling you that's the way you need to go. But I think we're in a state where we've got a lot of difficulty getting through what's real and what's not. And what's real is, and good for you, will not oppress you, will not shift you into a state of fear. It will not make you worry. It will not make you feel angry. It's going to sound callous, but things that are happening not in your direct sphere of reality, by all means, watch it, be aware of it, but don't absorb it to the point where you start taking sides in the Israel-Palestine or the, Iran or Iraq war, or the every major conflict is just there to propagate more duality and saturate your consciousness with just negative stuff, when the reality of it for most people in their actual physical day-to-day reality, even some of the people in Gaza, like, they're all just having a grand old time. They're having coffees, they're chatting, they're having cokes and walking down. Like, I was in Koh Samui during the time when there was supposedly bombs in Koh Samui, and there was not one single bomb that went off when I was there. Like, I was literally there, and all the mainstream media was saying there was all these bombs going off, and everything, everything's chaos. It was complete bullshit. So what you get shown on TV versus what's actually happening is vastly different often, and it's often way exaggerated. And sometimes it's just downright not right. It's just manipulation, lies, and coercions to make people feel, like they've got to get on board and get on a side. And this is what elections do to people as well. Like, all the elections, according to Swaru, or everyone who knows what's going on this planet, everything is a selection process. It's not an election process. They decide, okay, we're going to use Trump this time. He's going to be the antithesis. They've got a playbook. They're looking at it from a much more expanded perspective. They're not doing things. I think it's naive to think that your vote then translates to who goes into power. Do you really think that they're going to leave it to the mainstream public to determine who runs the free world? Do you really think that they will put it back to the people and say, yeah, you guys can choose who's gonna have the nuclear codes for the next 4 years? That's not real. That's not reality. Like, I hate to break it to people, but it's not real. I've never voted.
Coming in too. What you're hitting on is one of the questions coming in. And then
what's that?
Yeah.
They said, are they controlling it for our benefit?
Are they controlling it for our benefits?
No, is the short answer. I don't think. There's I think sounds like there's some regressive entities that are here at a astral level, so at a sort of so they'll come to you in your dreams. They'll gently manipulate your thoughts. They will do things that they feed on the negativity. They actually feed on how it creates problems in your reality. They enjoy those levels of frequency. And that's why we are continually bombarded with negative stories and negative stuff. But holistically, when you zoom out even further, what's actually happening at a quantum level at the moment is the chaos that precedes the coherence. And so we're right in the middle of the chaotic time where all of the fat is rising to the surface. For us to see it, scoop it out and say, we don't want that anymore. And just transcend it. And this is how we break the matrix, is by recognizing, looking at things as a neutral body, and then saying, That's nice. You guys are having those wars. You've obviously, from a karmic perspective, from a soul's perspective, not to not have empathy, but you've chosen to have that incarnation for your soul's expansion, and I respect that. But in my reality, we don't have wars. We have unity consciousness. We have ultimate acceptance of everyone around us. We are in a state of love, and you move your frequency to a higher realm. You just transcend it altogether and say, that's great that's happening, but I don't want it, and I want to move into a higher state of frequency. And if everyone does that, and everyone works, and a lot of people, what stops them doing things like what I'm doing is they give their power away to others. So what others think of me is whether I do it or don't do it. You know, what if my mother sees this? What if my coworkers see this? What will they think of me? Or, you know, and as soon as you give your power away, conscious power away to others, you're done for. Basically, you are just a passenger on the Matrix ride. Whereas if you want to manifest things yourself and manifest your own reality however you see it fit, and let your reality bend to your will, not the other way around, is you just manifest it for yourself with gratitude, with love, with authenticity, and with best of intentions. You never have good, if you always have the highest regard for your own ethics, and your own internal monologue is not a negative one, and you know that because you've done the hard work, you've done the self-reflection. If everyone works on themselves enough, meditates, spends some quiet time, spends time with their family, spends time in nature, grounds regularly, eats healthy food, builds their body with good energy, consumes good energy, both in social media, because what you consume in your food is one thing, but also what you consume in your information stream, your thought processes, is how they have control over you. So everything that's on that television is literally there to cause some form of reaction in your body, and that creates a state of either fight or flight, or parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. That's the basics of it. You've got an autonomic nervous system that either the automatic, that subconscious nervous system that works in the background, that keeps your heart beating and your blood pressure up and your pupils dilated or not. It all works two ways: fight or flight, rest and digest. Which one do you want to be in? Do you want to be in fight or flight all the time? Great. Just keep watching the mainstream media, keep worrying about what's happening in Gaza, keep worrying about whether or not Putin and Trump and Zelensky are going to have a fight or not. Keep worrying about shit that actually has completely zero to do with your current individual realities. And you could just about say that for everyone. Like the number of people that would put on their social media, a flag of one or the other members. You actually ask them, how was their day today? They went about their day normally. There was nothing in their day that in any way, shape, or form reflected what was happening in that said country. And they didn't even know. So and if you speak to people in these, like I went to Bali, and I spoke to, there was a lot of Russians in Bali at the time, and I was sitting in the sauna with a group of young guys. They were all young professional people, and I asked them about how are things on the floor. How is Russia with all this? It was right in the heart of the conflict, because they were not allowed to go anywhere else other than Bali because of all the restrictions, the sanctions that were put against the poor Russian people, right? Based on what Putin was doing. But they were saying that, oh no, this is, I don't know what the media talks about, but this conflict with the Ukraine has been going on for 10 years. We're actually stronger now than we were 10 years ago. There's no real, we're living a great life. We don't know why we're getting placed all these sanctions on us and where we can travel, but that they had nothing bad to say. Everything was, life is normal. This is supposedly in a country at war and all this sort of stuff. So you've got to be so mindful of what you consume. And if it's there to create and manipulate your emotional state so that you can become part of a collective consciousness in a lower fear-based mentality, then keep focusing on that stuff. If you want a reality that's focused in love and unity and multidimensionality and being able to have this interstellar relationship with other star races, and that becomes part of your norm, then make it part of your norm, and it becomes part of your norm, and things will happen for you. That's how I do it. And I've time and time again, I've been shown that if I listen to my intuition, if I follow my passion, the universe will roll out the red carpet and will say, right, go in that way, go in that direction. And Laurie McDonald did say to me, and at the time I was like pretty early on in my sort of awakening, and she said to me at the end of the session, she goes, look, I'll lay this on you thick. You are a nexus point. And I said, what does that mean? She goes, well, have you not noticed that the lights flicker around you a lot? I said, I have noticed that actually, but I always thought it was just a electrical kind of, that's just the poor electrics of wherever I was. And she says, no. And then the light started flickering like while we were talking. And she says, it's because you've got a lot of entities, around you, and you've got a lot of your higher frequency. And so electromagnetic devices around you may cause, have some trouble. And light, I have always noticed that with lights. But she said that that I'm a nexus point, that I have got a lot of timelines running through me. And then during a regression later on with Sarah Bressman-Cosme, she showed me and I showed myself that I actually was in between I was this blue being, I was probably a Syrian being, and then I was the Urmah. In between, I went into my higher state of being, which is a celestial, ancient celestial being, which is being of pure light, basically. That my job, and this is what came through in the regression, and my job is actually to anchor in higher frequency energies into planets at the precipice of their change, and at the precipice of their, where they're about to ascend into a higher frequency. Never before, apparently, has a whole planet ascended. It's usually been, various cultures, like, for example, the Mayan culture suddenly ascended in consciousness. That's why they disappeared off the face of the planet without there being any real remnant of them. It's because they literally went from a lower state of frequency to a higher state of frequency. They're from the planet Maya, which is, or the star Maya, which is one of the stars of the Pleiades. M-A-I-A, Maya. And so then they basically went home effectively, because you don't actually go anywhere. This is the thing with when you understand how reality works. It's energy, frequency, and vibration. Everything is here and now. Literally everything is here and now. So even if you were to go to a home planet, you're doing so with your consciousness. So you can suddenly transfer your consciousness to a version of yourself in a reality where you are on your home planet of Maya, for example, if you are connected enough to that. So you don't, and Swaru talks about it as well, that you do not need a starship to travel. And that's the whole premise of remote viewing and astral projection. In human terms, is literally using your consciousness to become aware and focus your attention on a version of yourself that is in wherever place or position, because everything has a frequency, position, location as well. So this phone here on this side versus the phone on this side is a different phone in a frequency sense. So it's got a different frequency signature when it's here than versus when it's there. So physical time and space for location is also a bit of an illusion at a quantum level. It's everything's just a frequency. So, and our brains are, contrary to popular mainstream science belief, do not contain memories. They do not contain, your brain does not contain anything other than circuitry to be used as a high frequency transducing antenna to pick up and transduce the frequencies in the ether that then can be translated to a physical experience that your 5 senses or 6 senses can translate to physical reality. So that's how things work from a frequency perspective. And all of this stuff, all of this weird information, all this weird stuff that I talk about, that probably some people may have to watch this 3 or 4 times to sort of get their head around a lot of what I say, just come through to me. Like I have an internal knowing about certain things that, and because I'm medically trained as well, I can actually also look into this mainstream science of it and compare it to what is coming through in either channeling or just my internal sort of knowing of certain things when I get asked. Usually the information doesn't come through unless I get asked, though. So if people want to ask me something, it will just come out. And the answer just sort of starts to come out, and I go, wow, I didn't know I knew that. Okay. So yeah, it's because that's what your brain is. Your brain is just a really high-powered. That's what the Akashic records are, and and this is what channelers do. They are basically changing their frequency to be more in resonance with another being, another consciousness, you see. So, Darryl Anker, when he does Bashar, they put an EEG cap on his head and his brain goes into a gamma frequency. When else does your brain go into a gamma frequency? Well, it goes into a gamma frequency when you do yogic flying. So that's what I do as part of my Siddha training, high-level meditation practices that I do. So your brain goes into gamma then. Your brain also goes into gamma when you are in a flow state. So when you're in a high-frequency flow state, like a concert violinist or a pianist, or like Michael Jordan when he's shooting hoop after hoop after hoop, his brain would have been on gamma frequency, which is like 40 to 100 hertz coherent. And normally we sit at around 20 to 30 hertz at the most in waking life. So once you start realizing you can alter your own frequency of your consciousness through meditative practices, you can then channel certain information. You can then become aware of certain knowledge. This is why often on planet Earth we see a fairly sudden change in technology. There's often a collective awareness, an awakening, where someone will just from the ether effectively have an invention of something, and then someone on the other side of the planet has exactly the same invention that comes to pass. This is real thing. This is real. This happens all the time on this planet. So either the information is being given to us by higher means through the cabal, so that there is a possibility of that, or it's just the frequency of the consciousness of the individual or the collective is increasing, expanding, and suddenly, you become aware of that level of that. So what's on that radio station now, and what's on that radio station, and then the higher that you expand your consciousness, the more you can become aware of. And so people who, for example, and I unfortunately have this in my friends, family, colleagues, co-workers, everyone, that struggle to even comprehend the concept of extraterrestrial life. It just for them, oh my God, their head explodes. I can't talk about this. They're trapped in fear. It's too scary for me. And they walk away. It makes them feel palpably uncomfortable. And that's a frequency mismatch. You see, that is someone who who's on this radio channel that has no awareness of extraterrestrial life outside of Earth. No, it's all there. But this person who's expanded ever so slightly more, and is either through experience or through research or through just in a state of consciousness, starts becoming aware that, oh wow, that there are actually other species, and effectively what we see on Earth.
A question too for you, and
yeah.
While we're at it, we'll say hi to Holly's out there, that girl from Aspen, Kim, Daniel, and Simon, and a special hi to our granddaughter Emma. And then, so the question was, do you have any recent messages from your Urmah group that you'd like to share with us now?
The Urmah, I think, work through each of us individually. They want you, I think, to, if you resonate with any of what I've said today, there's a good chance you are Urmah too. Okay, I have been since on this kind of journey of authenticity, where I've just made it clear to everyone that I don't care what you think about my crystals. I'm going to wear them. I'm my authentic self wherever I go. I'm attracting more and more other people who also see this as permission slip to say, you know what, we've got a high flying orthopedic surgeon dressing like a goddamn tiger because he you know, what I think of my life can't be that weird, you know. And so I'm giving people an opportunity to, I think, just be themselves. And that's how you break this matrix. And that's what the Urmah want. The Urmah want us to collectively wake up from the dream that we've been put under, the spell that we've been put under. Remember who you are. Remember you're not from here. Remember, and if you have a sense of, you know, you want to be more loving, you want to be, you want a fair, you want justice in life. If you do resonate with all of the injustices in the mainstream, don't get involved with them directly. Just work on yourself to start seeing the best of your own life. As soon as you start being grateful for everything in your own life and stop being a victim to your own life, start realizing that you, the universe is in you, and you are the first point of call to change anything. If you change yourself, you change your universe, and you change the reality of the version of yourself that reflects, because everything is a reflection of you. You are the universe, and we're all one consciousness. And so as soon as you just start treating everyone like an aspect of yourself, would I like to be treated that way? No. So don't treat someone that way. Just treat people exactly the way that you would like to be treated. And in doing so, you become empathetic. You start realizing people will start opening up to you, and you will realize that that this is how we change. Because according to Bashar, all it takes is 144,000 people on this mud ball, all to cycle their frequency at 180,000 cycles per second. So 180 megahertz, effectively. Most people, I think, sit around between 60 and 100. So there's a bit of work to do to get your frequency up. But ultimately, that is how the collective changes, is to work on, go out, find a yoga studio. If you've never done yoga, go do some yoga. Find a sound healing session and go do some sound healing. Go, you know, if you haven't done meditation, just download an app, FitMind, Headspace. There's so many options. YouTube, just Gaia. There's so many options. Do some meditation. Go inwards. Don't actually wait for an authoritarian, even an Urmah, to come and save you, because the Urmah do not, that is not, they are warriors. They want you to find your inner warrior, to realize that you are the creator of your reality, to empower yourself to become the cosmic cat, you know, himself or herself. That's how the Urmah want you. They don't even have direct, and they state this on Swaru as well, they do not, they, out of real warrior style of being, they do not directly communicate with any of their starseeds. So even when I'm channeling a higher version of myself that's probably got a collective communion telepathically with the Urmah society, but they're not talking to me directly, you know. And they make a point of that because they don't want that. And whenever I've asked in my regressions, Like, for example, I had a hunch that because in all of your regressions, I've been able to get to the end of each life, in each past life, in each parallel life. I've been able to very easily get to the end of life. The only life I've not been able to get to the end of is my Urmah life. And I've tried quite hard with Sarah over several, attempts to get to the end of my Urmah life. So I thought there's a possibility that I might still be an Urmah in an immersion pod, which is a technology that they can basically, it's an upright standing pod that transfers your consciousness, exactly like the movie Avatar, transfers your consciousness to a meat avatar, i.e. me, and I'm having this experience, but I'm actually going, when I die, I wake up in an immersion pod potentially, right? I asked that of my, and I asked that during my session when I was in communication, and they said, we have shown him the pods. It is not for him to know that right now, and it's going to distract him from his mission. And what they clearly are saying, and they've said this to other Urmah starseeds as well, because I've had a lot of conversations with other people who are in my boat actually, and they want you to find out your own mission yourself. They don't want to hand feed, they don't want to spoon feed anyone, because that's not how you change as a society. It's when you realize that you are in control, you are the universe, and you are the one that will influence your own reality through your thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and actions. So make those actions, emotions, and thoughts exactly what you want them to be. As soon as you start acting on other people's wants, on other people's beliefs, on other people's views of things, you're not being a true reflection of yourself. You're being what they want you to be. So that's, I think, what fundamentally the Urmah are all about, is about finding your own inner warrior. The old adage of, you can carry a sword, and know how to wield it, but you can stay sheathed. You just have to be ready to stand your ground. If you've got a belief, you've got to stand your ground. You cannot let anyone walk all over you about your own beliefs. Doesn't matter if it doesn't resonate with them. They're just not for you. They're not they're not the right vibration for you. That's fine. Everyone is entitled to their own level of consciousness. Everyone's entitled to feel however they want to feel, but it's so important for you to never give your power away and to stay true to yourself. And when you are true to yourself, that is where the magic happens. And that's where you will change everything around you. And, and just try it. If you haven't done it, just try it. Just, you walk through walk into a store, a mall, and you see something that you really want to buy, and you go, wow, that's outlandish, pattern on that dress, but I want to go and buy it, and I love it, and I'm just going to go, and I think it's going to look great on me, and forget what anyone else thinks of you. If that's what you want, and that tickled your fancy, you go and do it. That little things like that a lot of people just are completely trapped by, what is my husband going to think? What is my wife going to think? What is my mother going to think? What is my workplace going to think? That's just, you're in a victim mentality. You're a leaf blowing in the breeze. Be the breeze, be the breeze that blows the leaf, not the other way around.
It should be. Hopefully they like what I'm wearing because I'm being my true, genuine self. I mean, I always believe that too. It's, I love to see, especially you coming on with your tiger, I mean, that's just like, that is so awesome that you're representing that and just being yourself, because like you're talking about now, just being yourself. I mean, and one point I was going to tell you earlier when we were talking about meditation, during my last meditation was awesome that you were talking about the water. I keep on getting these water messages. Jackie's had these water messages for a long time. And then I know Brett's been getting these water messages too. So it's just like beautiful that you came up with that, and, you wearing that and being your true self. I mean, exactly. Who cares what anybody else thinks? Be the, true you.
Yeah. Otherwise you're starting to live your life for other people. And that's how you keep manifesting a collective consciousness rather than your own individual reality that you want. And if we're all living in our own beautiful synchronistic realities, we will all meld together in our own synchronistic ways, and everything will gradually move towards holistic society, not this authoritative society that we get told what reality is, we get told what science fiction, we get told what science fact, I mean, another example recently is of how the cabal manipulates things is the recent discoveries under the Giza pyramids. That I watched a podcast of the actual creator of the technology last night, and he's like openly saying that this is technology that like no one really else has, and it's showing this amazing structures, and like he's very adamant. And then this morning I see a thing saying that the official narrative saying there's no credible evidence of anything under the Giza plateau, nothing to see here, carry on. So, you know, what the cabal does on social media all the time, right, is it tries its best. It'll put out a narrative that hasn't happened yet, but it'll put it out in a convincing way that people can then choose to take that information and run with it and go, that is fact. Oh, and then they just puppet it like a useful idiot. Oh, there's been no credible evidence. It was on, you know, Channel 7, like a robot. Or you take every piece of information, appraise it, see if it resonates. And even if it doesn't resonate, look at it in a negative synchronistically way and go, okay, I need to shift my direction or interest in some other direction. Maybe that's not the right direction for it. So, yeah.
Jackie's a question for you, too.
Yeah, Arash, suppose I'm someone who is very interested in having a past life regression done, but I'm feeling a little scared or nervous. Do you have any suggestions or advice?
So it's pretty common. I've had quite a few regressions now, and the first time I did it, I must say I was apprehensive. I wasn't nervous, but I was kind of apprehensive about. You're apprehensive about being in a state of consciousness, or not even. You're worrying even that it won't work for you, or you know you have these feelings of imposter syndrome, or you know you gaslight yourself. Was that all real? Or you know, so there's a lot of apprehension when you first do your first regression. But the best thing you can do is just relax into it, trust that you are still the creator of your universe, and that all you're going to see is more of yourself. And your subconscious mind will only show you what you're prepared to see at that point of your conscious evolution. You won't actually see anything more than you're ready to handle. And that's by design internally. Your egoic mind is what's concerned about that. It's your egoic mind. It's that lower state of, it's that monkey mind that's telling you to be worried about it. And what if this happens? And what if this happens? And what if there's some childhood trauma comes up and destabilizes your session and blah 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 blah. You know, so this is your egoic mind. Your higher mind knows that what it's doing and has already planned it for you. So you just got to trust the process. And as soon as you trust and surrender, again, that's where magic happens. Don't doubt and fear is just a thought process. You don't have to think about doubt and fear. You just think about the fact that it's going to be useful. Anything that comes of it is meant for you. And as soon as you look at the universe like the universe is happening for me, not to me, that's a big paradigm shift. So everything in your reality is happening for you.
Yeah, Jackie said that helps a lot.
I have a hypnosis next Sunday, and
we both have hypnosis coming up, and she said she's feeling a little timid. She's going first.
Excited, very excited.
She'll be going first.
Approach it with a positive attitude of excitement and channel that sort of apprehensive energy into excitement of looking forward. Just I'm looking forward to see what comes of that. Embrace the uncertainty. It's the uncertainty that usually derails people, and I find I revel in uncertainty. And this comes down to how risk averse you are. If you're very risk averse, you will not like uncertainty. Your egoic mind will try its best to control the narrative and control where it's going and what's going to happen, and that's the egoic mind. But the higher mind, that's the higher state of consciousness, trusts the process. So just trust the process. That's what I reckon.
Yeah, thank you. That's perfect. Yeah, you got any questions you have over there? We've had Brett quiet over there for a minute. You got any questions there, little brother?
Well, no, I've just been listening, and everything Arash has been saying totally resonates with me, and he's made some great points. And that's something actually I've been experiencing a lot lately, is the oneness that we are one being. We are from this source. We have split into these mirrors and this fractal nature, and you really got to go what resonates with you. And everything Arash is saying is just beautiful. So I kind of knew tonight I was just going to sit here quiet and let Arash channel and speak his truth, because he's got incredible information. And there isn't just one answer. This is something I would add. Just because if some of this may resonate dearly with you or deeply with you, and it may not, but it's a fractal universe, and you really have got to go into our own power now. Not go so much along with this group conformity, because that is a way of, there's so much manipulation and control placed on us. But again, like I said, from a soul level, you might say, well, we accepted this, we know this, we've done this for a reason. But just go into your true self, be yourself, and shine the bright light and beautiful beings you are. And turn that telly off. I'm very the same as Arash. We don't have the TV in our house. We haven't had the TV in our house for probably 10, 15 years. We don't watch it. Therefore, we're not stressed out about this. It's during COVID, people will be messaging me going, Brett, all this pandemic. I said, what pandemic? I'm out in the forest. I'm meditating. I haven't had a vaccine. I'm not ill, So, yeah, I just think it's a beautiful message, man. Today, I knew I was going to be quiet tonight, because I'm really looking forward to listening to what Arash had to say. And, I've got to say a lot of it resonated with me, brother. So, yeah, I don't really have any questions. So if there's any more in the chat, carry on.
Yeah, I think that's super important to recognize, I think, Brett, that you got to take what resonates with you and discard the rest effectively. Whatever resonates with you, take it, and whatever it doesn't, don't. And that's one of the big things Urmah are big believers of as well, that everyone is on their own path, and they respect everyone's decisions on everything, basically, as long as it's not harming others, and you're not actively suppressing or harming others, which is one of their biggest issues, is that there is a lot of harm going on planet Earth at the moment. And so that's why we've got to transcend it, and we've got to still recognize it, see it, and say we do not consent to it. We're not interested in it, and we're not going to be manipulated in any way, shape, or form moving forward. And when you are in that standing in your own power, that no, in my reality there is no COVID, there is no negative forces, there is nothing to fight. Just look around. I'm having a great time. It's clouds, not a cloud in the sky. Go to the beach, enjoy my life, spend time with my friends, family, dog. Like, my life is great. I've just bought a camper van. I'm enjoying my work. Like, there's nothing to be concerned about. Like, the only thing I would be concerned about would be what I'm feeding my mind in social media and other forms of news media that would then, or the stock market is on the verge of crashing, or the US dollar could be doing this, or like, there's so much negative trash out there that we can just stop thinking about. Just work on your day-to-day and trust that anything on a global scale that is meant for you to know about, you will know about it just by proxy. Like, stuff that's on the collective consciousness's mind will be on your mind too, whether you like it or not. It will come to you. So you don't need to go and, it's like some people say that, oh, but if you don't watch the news, like, how are you going to know what's happening in the world? And you're like, what relevance does it have to your day-to-day? First thing you got to ask yourself, what relevance does it have? How is it affecting your day-to-day? If it has a direct effect, sure. But if it doesn't have a direct effect on your day-to-day, you got to ask yourself, what is it actually doing to your consciousness? And if it's not doing anything good to your consciousness, then maybe you're better off not knowing about all the atrocities that are going on in the Gaza Strip, if you are having a fantastic life, and in your life you will never ever visit the Gaza Strip, and you will have no one that you know from the Gaza Strip, and there'll be nothing in your reality that will actually reflect what's happening in the Gaza Strip, for example. Just one example. But again, to a dualistic, lower frequency consciousness, that will sound very harsh and callous, but it's not. I'm not being harsh. I'm just stating that what you focus on in your reality grows. So if just whatever you do, especially in the moving forward in the current times, the frequency of the planet is going up. The Schumann resonance is vibrating off the Richter constantly. We're getting constantly hit by solar energy. And this is definitely, I think, upgrading our frequency. It's changing. It's unlocking all that dormant DNA that the mainstream science calls junk DNA. No, our DNA is a cosmic galactic record of every single incarnation, every single soul memory we ever have is in our DNA. This is why we are able to have past life regressions, is because we're becoming aware of our multidimensional self. And this is all because of the frequency increasing on the planet. So things are manifesting way quicker, and we can exert a lot of control, both positively and negatively, in our reality at the moment. And this is why the cabal will push harder on social media and on mainstream media to really try to capture people back into the fear mentality. Oh, here's another strain of COVID, and there's going to be another war. There's going to be World War III, or there's going to be this, or there's going to be that. Like, don't focus on anything that you don't want to transpire. Like, do not focus on it. Focus on only what you want to transpire in your existence, and that's all that will transpire, because you are creating it. And you will live a life where there eventually, that there will be peace in the. If you just are resonating peace, you will vibrate into a version of Earth that there is just peace, and you'll start hearing about all the peace that's going on in the world, and all the amazing, technologies that are being released, and that's where you should be focusing your energy on, and then that's what you will manifest for yourself and the collective.
Yeah, and then I had a question too. When you had your Urmah, did you feel comfortable, coming out to your friends and mainly your family? And how did they react when you actually told them that, this is me?
Yeah, so I've got very supportive parents. They are extremely open-minded and have had spiritual experiences themselves. My father was doing yoga nidra before I started meditating. He's a very spiritual, I think he's a very high frequency being himself. I think we've been friends in a past life rather than father and son, because we sort of have more of a friendship style of relationship. He's also had grey extraterrestrial contact when he was younger. And he states very, to this day, he says that when he was an undergraduate in Iran studying geology, he said he never had to set an alarm in the morning. And the reason for that was that he had, in that state of consciousness between waking and sleeping, just as you're starting to wake up, he would have these little grey beings, little grey kids, but he describes them little grey people, coming very cutely, just tickling his feet in the morning and telepathically saying to him, it's time to get up, you've got work to do, you can't lie in bed anymore. And very loving, nurturing style of the Zeta Grey type beings. And he told me when I came out to him about the stuff I've been experiencing, because I've had contact with grey extraterrestrials as well, and that's probably for another podcast, but when I told him about all this stuff, he said, well, actually, there's been this issue there. And then he went on to tell me, and Mum did as well. Mum remembered. She said, when I was 18 months old, I used to waddle over to the window. This is when I was born in the US when Dad was doing his master's in geology there. And it was in Utah, and basically they had a large window that looked out, and there was no curtain or anything. And so I would waddle over at night, put my hands on the windowsill and look up into the glass apparently, and just start speaking in a different language. Like they said, it was freaky because it was like I could barely say any English words, but I was speaking this weird language and speaking to something in the window. So and it shocked them to the level that they'd sort of suppressed it in their own consciousness until I had all these other experiences and came out to them and talked to them about it, and they're like, "Oh my God!" But my interest in UFO extraterrestrial life has actually really polarized my family. So like my two younger brothers have, that it really, I think, state of shock and fear, and that they haven't been able to assimilate the information as well as I would have expected them to. They are married, kids, that they've got other priorities at the moment in their life, and so I don't think they're at a state of consciousness where they can look at things as an expanded way, because they've got the daily grind. I'm never married, no kids. I've got a bit more mental space, and I've done a lot of inner work, and so I don't expect them to. And your family, you choose your family at a soul level. They're there to create potential antagonism. They're there to create a reflection that even that spurs you on. So if I was to look at the way that my youngest brother reacted towards my extraterrestrial stuff, he would trigger me the most. He would gaslight me, say that I'm crazy, saying this nonsense, all this UFO junk that you're talking about. He would try and put me back into a state of fear of, oh, you're gonna destroy your reputation as a doctor by posting all this stuff on social media. So he created for me even more of a stern, no, I'm going to prove him wrong here. I'm going to show him that I don't care what people think of me. I don't care what my reputation will be like. My work will show what it is, and people will come to me irrespective of my beliefs or my understandings of how reality work at a cosmic level. Doesn't matter really. You should be able to enjoy an interest in extraterrestrial life and have that as a hobby horse, and it shouldn't affect the way that you practice medicine, for example. So I was so my brothers, I'm grateful for them, actually, really grateful for them being who they are. I think they have been placed in my family as beacons of light to guide me towards where I am right now. Because if I didn't have the triggering and the emotional triggering from my own brothers, I probably wouldn't be who I am today. I would have felt accepted enough that I wouldn't have needed to go public. I wouldn't have needed to, because I probably would have felt accepted enough within my own family to not have this sort of a podcast, because I'd be having this sort of conversation with my brothers, who I was very, very close with. So I think gradually the scale will turn. Like, I think gradually it's impossible, because you see, when I first started posting about UFOs back in 5, 6 years, 8 years ago, that was before all of the David Grush testimonials and the UFO Congress hearings and the exponential rise in UFO sightings and UFO experiences, and whistleblowers coming forward. So basically, I was right about all of those things, and it's impossible for my brothers not to see that now. That actually I was actually just ahead of the curve. But as Bashar talks about, we are all living in our own realities, and there are glass barriers that are gradually coming in between, individuals based on which train they want to go on, which reality train that they want to go on.
Have any of your family members have a past life regression yet?
Well, no. So my father's really keen to do it. My mother's got MS, and I think she needs to do it for her own health, to see why she's given herself MS effectively, because we all give ourselves our own diseases effectively to learn something from them. That's part of the soul journey, because all disease is dis-ease in the end. It's what the mind suppresses, the body expresses. That's my belief fundamentally, that because even in modern medicine, we don't know what we really don't know the root cause of very few diseases, actually, where we just know what the effects of those diseases are. We don't actually know what causes them. So osteoarthritis, wear and tear in the joint, we call it wear and tear in the joint, but it's not a symptomatic osteoarthritis like an arthritic knee that has got terrible arthritis on X-ray. A little old, 95-year-old granny, yoga granny, can come and move her legs perfectly and say, I've got no pain. So there's no correlation between what you see on the X-ray and what that person experiences as symptoms. And same as the opposite. So you can see a knee that's got virtually no arthritis in it, but they've got the most painful knee ever because of the tiny amount of arthritis they've got in their knee. So there's I think a lot of it's inflammation, and a lot of that inflammation comes from not just physical means, but it can be manufactured. You can actually increase the amount of inflammatory mediation in your body by being in a state of fight or flight all the time, or being in a state of anger all the time, or so because we know that our emotional states create neurochemical second messengers, hormones in our bloodstream that then have physical effects. I mean, we all understand that when we get anxious, when we have a feeling and a thought of anxiety, that's something stress-provoking in our minds, that physically manifests as an increased heart rate, sweating, sweaty palms, even passing out. So to think that our minds do not control our bodies is so silly. To think, that our thought processes cannot affect our physical state of being. And so I'm starting, and I think personally my journey is also to bridge the science and spirituality, because I'm in a state where I'm in a state of consciousness where I think I can see the benefits of the East and the West medicine, for example. Eastern medicine talks about energy centers, chakras, meridians, acupuncture points, acupressure points, whereas Western medicine's all about allopathic and surgery and taking pills, and so there's roles for both, but there's also a third, which is the consciousness, the state of consciousness of that person. Are they in a state of fear? Are they in a state of gratitude? Are they in a state of love? If they're in a bad state, it'll manifest as negative stuff in their body as well. And a lot of Dolores Cannon's work has shown that, like cancer, for example, is usually a pent-up amount of anger in your body. So if you have a lot of anger in your body, it usually will manifest as cancer somewhere in your body. So and I think those sorts of pent-up emotions, people just need to work through to get them out. And that's why I think frequency-based modular care, like things like sound healing, breath work, the iTaurus that I have, biohacking tools, things like there's devices that you can get that will settle your vagus nerve. So I've gone through that phase as well, where I actually use technologies like the NeoRhythm. There's this heartbeat thing. I can't forget what it's called now, and basically it vibrates on your chest, and it stimulates your vagus nerve. And there's a few vagus nerve stimulating technologies out there that actually physically put you into a rest and digest, a parasympathetic nervous system dominant state of being, which is effectively what all meditation does. So all meditation switches you out of fight and flight, puts you into a rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system. And it's in that state of rest and digest that you can have epiphanies, that your brain can go into states of consciousness where it can actually access higher information. If you're in a state of fight or flight all the time, you cannot access higher states of consciousness because you're always too busy running away from the saber-toothed tiger in your mind. That's what that fight or flight response is there for, is to save you from the saber-toothed tiger, back in evolutionary days. So anything you can do to down-regulate your sympathetic nervous system, to put you in a state of rest and digest. Doing that through meditative practices is probably the most organic, but there are other methods. You know, there's plant medicine options, there's biohacking options, there's cold plunges, there's
like sound frequencies when you sleep.
Exactly. So I will, if I have trouble sleeping, I get on YouTube, and I've got a YouTube Premium, so I can play things for entirety without ads. So like there are tracks, 8 and 12-hour tracks of singing bowls, crystal singing bowls that specifically put your brain into a delta brainwave state. So all you have to do is just Google, crystal singing bowls, delta brainwave states, and on YouTube, and it'll come up with, and they're designed with black screens that you can just play them in the background, and if you do this and just lie back and just listen to these frequencies, you drift off into the deepest, most beautiful sleep. And you wake up and it still can be playing and you barely notice it. It's amazing. So the power of frequency is real, because everything is energy, frequency, vibration, everything.
Yeah. Also, like, when you're sleeping, when we were talking about being your mind controlling your body and so forth. Exactly. When you're sleeping, your mind can actually paralyze the body. That's why, you don't react and do the things that are in your dreams, because the person next to you might not be too happy when you're punching and kicking a
Exactly.
dragon or a dinosaur or a monster in your sleep, and then next thing you know, it's your wife or your husband.
Yeah, sleep paralysis.
You can go one step further, because you can go to the mind awake, body asleep, and that's a state. Like for Yoga Ninja, you can get this state where you can trick your body into going to sleep, but your mind's still away, and there's some magic can happen there. So just wanted to add that. Yeah, no, it's a pleasure talking to you guys, and having the opportunity to share some of my views on things. Hopefully it resonates with some people. I'm not sure. A lot of it probably has gone over the head of a lot of people. That's resonating deeply with a lot of people, brother, and it's needed. And I'm kind of getting the feeling that maybe next time you come on, we could go into the graves a little bit. Obviously, I've had experience from a child as well. I've seen a little bit in the comments that some other people as well have experienced them, and so maybe that's something else we could talk about. Maybe, like you said, that could be a separate podcast. But I'm just throwing that out there because I'm feeling that in the heart, Arash.
I'm happy to do something on that. Yeah, I've got quite a lot to say.
Been wanting to talk about the Greys and so forth for a long time now, so I know that she'll be excited about that one, guys.
Sounds good.
Yeah, this has been wonderful.
Thank you so much, guys. Well, we'll wrap it up, huh?
Yeah, with that being said, hey, thank you to all the subscribers for joining us today. And we're going to wrap it up on that note. Thank you very much. Hearts up, everybody. Much love to everybody. Peace and love.
Keep shining.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you so much. If you've enjoyed, you can put a like on, a share, subscribe. That'd be beautiful. And we'll see you next time. So much love, people.
Thanks, guys.
Keep shining.